What is up, guys? It's your boy Zach here, aka That Bio Dude, coming at you live with the coolest, most informative, and funniest AP biology videos on the interweb that you can find. And today we're talking about the respiratory system, Lecture 5. We're just gonna jump right into it, talk about gas exchange surfaces. Respiration is a sequence of events that results in gas exchange between the body's cell and the environment. In terrestrial vertebrates, respiration occurs in these three steps: ventilation, external respiration, and internal respiration. Ventilation includes inspiration and expiration, which is just breathing. External respiration is gas exchange between the air and the blood within the lungs. Blood then transports oxygen from the lungs to the tissues. And internal respiration is gas exchange between the blood and the tissue fluid. The blood then transports carbon dioxide to the lungs. And you can see that in the picture here on the right. You have the external respiration occurring at the top, where you have carbon dioxide going in, oxygen coming out. And then on the bottom, you can see that oxygen is going into the tissues, carbon dioxide is coming out, and that is internal respiration. And that's how they kind of work together. There's different types of respiration, and then this kind of focuses on the marine life. Animals with gills use various means of ventilation. Among mollusks such as clam or squid, water is drained into the mantle cavity and then through the gills. In crustaceans such as crabs and shrimp, tasty stuff, the gills are located in thoracic chambers. Fish use counter-current exchange to transfer oxygen from surrounding water into the blood. Here's a look how fish gills work. Fun fact for you, whales aren't fish. Alright, so here's a picture of fish gills. So right here on the left, first thing, water passes out of the pharynx and over the finely divided gills right here. And you can see the direction of the water flow. They're coming through these finely divided gills. Right here is a gill arch, and these are the gill filaments, these little tiny things, and you see everything's coming through this way. Water passes by the gill lamellae in direction opposite of blood flow, and then you can see those little small ridges right that we can see in there. And then it keeps passing. It passes over these lamellae, and this is, you can see the blood flow starts circulating due to this passing of H2O. And then, of course, oxygen content of water is always higher than the oxygen content of the blood. So as it comes through this way, as the O2 movement comes this way, the blood flow is going to come through this way, and that's how fish breathe. So there's different types of respiration in insects. Arthropods are coelomate animals, but the coelom is reduced and the internal organs all lie within a cavity called the hemocoel. Hemolymph flows freely through this chamber, making circulation very inefficient. Many insects are adapted for flight, and their flight muscles depend on a steady supply of oxygen. I think it's supposed to be efficient. They have very efficient blood flow, and this is what allows them to fly around and do all that sort of crazy stuff. So the respiratory systems consist of trachea, tiny air tubes that take oxygen directly to cells. Trachea have a single layer of cells supported by chitin. These direct route allows oxygen to flow directly from the trachea to the mitochondria and where cell respiration occurs. See here in the picture on the right, there's that trachea, the smaller tracheoles that branch from it. And then this is where the air will go in right into this air sac, and that's what allows insects to have very efficient respiration. Different types of respiration in humans. So, the human respiratory tract. The respiratory tract extends from the nose to the lungs, which are composed of air sacs called alveoli. The lining of trachea is ciliated epithelium with mucus-producing goblet cells. The lining prevents inhaled particles from reaching the lungs. The mucus traps the particles, and then the cilia receptors and mucus toward the throat where it can be swallowed. Gas exchange occurs between the air and the alveoli blood within the capillaries. And these are all the parts of the respiratory system. Air will come in, obviously, your mouth or your nostril, into the nasal cavity to the pharynx, where this is where the epiglottis comes into play, right there, if you can kind of see that, which separates your food from your air. The food goes down the pharynx and the esophagus. The air goes into the larynx, which then brings it into the left and right main bronchioles and then into the lungs. And then, fun fact, your diaphragm down here, which is at the base of the lungs, kind of holds everything together. Hiccups are actually a spasm of the diaphragm. Learned that in anatomy. Thought that was pretty interesting. All right, breathing and transport of gases. During breathing, the lungs are ventilated. Oxygen moves into the blood, and carbon dioxide moves into the blood, into the lungs. Blood transports oxygen to the body cells and carbon dioxide from the cells to the lungs. So on the left, you can see here, air is coming into the lungs, and then when pressure in the lungs decreases, air comes rushing in. So if you take a big breath, obviously air will be coming in. The lungs are decreasing, which allows air to come in. And on the right, you're pushing air out, so you're breathing out, and this is the increases the air, which pushes it out. All right, gas exchange and transport. Like I said before, external and internal respiration. We're going to look at it a little more in depth here. External respiration in the lungs and carbon dioxide leaves blood and oxygen enters the blood. Internal respiration is in the tissues. Oxygen leaves blood and carbon dioxide enters the blood. So kind of looking back, we talked before about the cardiovascular system. The ventricles right here, and you have your ventricles and your atriums. So right here on the left, and the blue here, you have your left ventricle. We'll start right here, which is pushing air, which is pushing up blood up into the lungs where CO2 can come in and oxygen can come out. And then it comes back through the pulmonary vein, back into the heart, pumped by the right ventricle, which pumps it out. Said that backwards. Left ventricle, it's flipped. Left ventricle pumps that back into the tissues. Internal respiration occurs where the oxygen is coming out and the CO2 is coming in. They work together. And then respiration health and infections. A lot of infections and stuff can happen with the lungs. You got to be very careful with them. You can have alveoli filled with pus and fluid, making gas exchange difficult. You can have pulmonary fibrosis. Fibrosis connective tissue builds up in the lungs, reducing their elasticity. Pulmonary tuberculosis. Tubercules encapsulate bacteria, and the elasticity of the lungs is reduced. Emphysema. Alveoli burst and fuse into enlarged air spaces. Surface area for gas exchange is reduced. Just right there. And then asthma, which is what I had when I was younger. Airways are inflamed due to irritation, and bronchioles constrict due to muscle spasms. So you might need a little puffer to help you out if you have asthma. And then bronchitis, airways are inflamed due to infection, acute, or due to irritant, which would be chronic. Coughing brings up mucus and pus. My buddy Tanner Brown, he had bronchitis a couple weeks ago or something. It's not good stuff. And then, of course, always disorders. Along with many infections that can happen in the lungs, many disorders can cause lungs to not function properly. Lung cancer just recently surpassed great cancer in deaths among women. It's supposed to say breast cancer. That's my bad. Breast cancer among women, 150,000 people in the U.S. die every year from lung cancer, and 90% are related to smoking. And then emphysema, chronic and incurable lung disorder in which the alveoli are distended and their walls are damaged so that the surface area available for gas exchange is reduced. Smoking is also a major cause of this. And you can see in the bottom here some normal, healthy lungs looking pretty rich. And then you have the emphysema right here, which is looking very dark and brown. And then lung cancer, which also looks rather dark. You can kind of see a tumor. It's right here. So if you don't learn anything about science from this video, at least learn that smoking is bad. Don't do it, otherwise your lungs are going to look like that, and that looks gross, and you don't want that. So that'll wrap up this video about the respiratory system. Hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe. Lecture 6 coming up next.